Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 4 of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bass Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody, wherever and however you're watching or listening to this podcast. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Type in the Social Work Rants podcast on YouTube. Follow the podcast on Instagram, the Social Work Rants Podcast. That's all one word. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Social Work Rants and hit the likes button on Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants Podcast and hit the like button. My book, Trying Through Pain: How to Maximize Your Full Potential During Down Times, is looking for a end of February, beginning of March release date. So be on the lookout for that. My guest at this time, we've been going back and forth on IG, and we finally got it together. With all especially my crazy schedule, trying to if I don't write things down, then I'm like, oh snap, that's right. So, Cherish Fields, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, of course. I'm glad we able to connect the power of social media and using this platform, this podcast to connect to incredible social workers, mental health professionals throughout the country and even outside of America doing amazing work, especially while we still in a pandemic. So
Right. Exactly.
So let everybody know who you are, what you do in our wonderful, exciting yet challenging field of social work.
Absolutely. So yes, hello everyone. My name is Cherish Fields, and I'm a social worker. I'm a podcast host as well of the Child Welfare Leaders podcast. And my main focus in social work has been child welfare. So I've worked with youth in foster care, servicing them and their families. Been doing it for like 10 years. So kind of excited about the fact that I got some skin in the game because, you got to sometimes, serve that time, if you will, kind of
Yes.
learn the ropes, right?
Yes,
Pay your
absolutely.
dues. So I'm kind of happy that I've been able to get a lot of experience in the different just settings and positions from direct service to now I'm more macro level. So
Okay.
it's been a journey just to kind of be on all sides of it. But that's kind of like, what I do, and I'm very passionate about it. Um, it's funny because it's not a dream of mine that I had, oh, I want to be a social worker. I didn't have someone who kind of influenced me to like look up to someone and say, when I grow up, I want to be a social worker.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting how I kind of came into social work. My journey in social work, be it that wasn't, nothing really inspiring me to do it. So, but I'm happy to be here, fell in love. And I definitely fell in love with grad school, which made me like really get excited about a career path.
Okay. Let's talk briefly about that. Where'd you go to grad school? Tell the audience what was it about grad school? Because I have a like unlike relationship with grad school. So
Okay. So I actually went to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor School of Social Work.
okay.
Um, it was rigorous. It is one of those programs where, they definitely at that time were discouraging you from working, like for you to just really focus because of the rigor of the curriculum.
Mm.
Um, but I enjoyed it because I felt like I was learning theories and of why things they were the way they were in society, understanding systems and system change, understanding families, generational things, trauma. And then you kind of get a little taste of like, so I focused on management of human services. So I got more macro level, which I was
Okay.
able to kind of learn like leadership and social work, learning evaluation, grant writing, and then having a sub focus where I'm really focused in on like adolescent development and then some things like addictions and groups and things of that nature. So, and I love the fact that, let's just be honest, I don't do well at tests. So a lot of the stuff that we had to do was group work, presentations, speaking, like that was all me. So I was like, oh, this is more of, my field, my wheelhouse. Because I just wasn't going to take a test anywhere. I didn't want to. I was like, I'm not good at tests. So you know what? This is perfect. I solve people problems, not math problems. So cool, So yeah, I just fell in love with social work because I felt like I was studying something that I felt connected to. I was learning more about real life stuff, and I think that may have just been in my heart, something that kind of spoke to me. So I just kind of dived right in, and it was supportive. It was really focused versus I felt like undergrad was more getting your feel for like, what is it that you want? And
right.
I don't know, undergrad for me was more like high schoolish, type territory, because everybody was kind of feeling their adulthood and trying to figure out what can they do and kind of explore. And for me, it was like, I was actually looking for more maturity. And so when I got to grad school, I was like, I want this. I would have wanted this experience in undergrad, but I'm happy to be, here, because I felt like people were having real conversations. We were networking about, really what we were going to do in our pathways, and what we want to do for our life, so I felt like it was more purposeful than more so just that exploration, which I ain't knocking it. But, a lot of people would be like, oh, I wish I could do undergrad again. And I'd be like, no, I would never do undergrad again. But I don't know. I would, depending on the situation, I might do my grad school life again, because it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was challenging, but it was fun.
No, grad school was definitely challenging and balancing a full-time job, grad school. I was married at the time. Then I had my first child, my son, and just I'm like, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. So
there you go. Yes, yes.
It was a lot.
It was different for me just because I came right out of undergrad. So I was determined to like take care of all the schooling so that when I went out and launched into the field, I didn't have to worry about, that aspect, just because my personality, I don't know if I would have made it, having a family. So I'm like, kudos to those people who were holding down families at home and had all the responsibilities that they did, because that was a feat. Like, I look at my life now being married with 2 kids, and I'm like, I would never go back to school. I used to be like, I want to go get a PhD, and I'm like, nah. No, I think that learning gets cut off. I'm going to leave the rest of my brain of what is left in there and those lessons to teach my kids on their homework.
Exactly. No, I definitely would not get a doctorate degree. I know people who are going to get their doctorates now, and like kudos to them for doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I barely wanted to do the grad school. I was like, I saw supervisors with master's degrees or people getting promoted. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta go get an MSW now. So back to school I go.
No, for real. And I didn't really know what I was doing when I got the master's, and how it would necessarily set me up, but it was just a process. It was like, for me, the words was like, trust the process. So I just trusted the process and, went through it. And again, I really considered getting a PhD because of, in hindsight, of what I feel like I wanted to do after I kind of got a grip of like, okay, maybe I do have a plan for this social work. Like, this could work for me,
Right.
And who knows, maybe the future does hold something more of a doctorate, but I would say for right now, with kids, small kids at that, I'm definitely not interested in that unless the opportunity just was paid for free and is going to take care of my other financial responsibilities, right? So I got to have that supplement there or something. But no, but it was, again, it was good. Like, I enjoyed my graduate studies and journey. It really kind of helped solidify some things for me and some purpose, that I was looking for.
Cool. I wish I had the Wolverine fight song and playing in the background. And
there we go. No books, anybody who graduated from U of M. Shout out to everybody. Yeah.
So how so it leads me to, you mentioned, being a mom and social work with two small kids. Like how do you juggle motherhood and social work and try not to stuff that you see and bring it home?
Oh man. So when I was in direct practice, I had my daughter. And oh man, I was working in a residential setting, and I'll tell you, I felt like I really understood before I had a child, but when I had a child, I felt the pain of those kids. Like it was a different, I don't know, it was different emotionally. I think I felt it differently. I digested and processed things that, I would hear differently. After having my daughter. And I don't know if it was just the hormones from being when I was pregnant and had her and my body normalizing,
Right.
or what, but it was emotionally, I couldn't cut it off as I was able to prior to, and I think it was just more so the fact that now I had given life to a human, right? Outside of myself. And so now I had these mother eyes, not just mothering kids who maybe didn't have or was absence of a mother figure, and trying to, and really caring for the kids, right? Really trying to have a heart for them. But then now coming into the work, being an actual somebody mama, and then looking at these kids as much as I care for them, and just feeling for them, not having that mother's presence or
Right.
going through the things that would never happen. And, as a mother, I would never allow to happen, to my child. I think that it really kind of changed me a bit, and it was hard because I think that you definitely are more protective in a way. Like I definitely worried about certain things. I was very, as my daughter started to speak and grow, I was a lot more intentional about talking to her about her boundaries and listening to boundaries, and making sure, like, I don't care who threatens you, you better tell me because I got a threat for them. Like,
Right.
like it was all these different things, because you hear these horror stories and it's not, Joe Blow down the street, it's an uncle, or
Yeah.
somebody super close to you, a trusted friend that's doing things to, this kid, and you're like, okay, I'm going to tell and try to prepare my child, because I don't want to be ignorant, to things that could possibly happen, and not my child not have an outlet or someone to come and run to because they scare somebody,
Right, of
a
course.
threat, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then just being, I do think it made me a little bit more hypersensitive to who I put my child around. Making sure, like, okay, here's this, please stay in communication with me, and really wanting more information and to communicate with the caregiver over my child.
Right, of course.
So I think that's kind of how it affected me, being in the work that I do, making me more vigilant with my child and more conscious and intentional in certain things that I teach her or share with her, to protect herself, and allows me to protect her. I don't think I went overprotective with her. She's pretty free. Like, the homegirl don't know no strangers. She's a social bug, but I do think that she is aware, like, of her body, and will say things to me. And ever since she could speak, she'll say, yep, this person. And you can tell she's big on, like, if mommy don't trust you, then I'm hesitant. I'm gonna wait until I get the clear. Like, I'm looking at my mama like, okay, yep, you good. Mama good with you. So
No, that's important, and that's good that your child has that self-awareness that she's gonna see how you react to a person, because kids are just like, sometimes they just go along with a person and like, what are you doing? Like, you can't be free. Like you're not running for public office.
yeah,
relax yourself.
like,
like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I tell my kids all the time that shit. Like, there's a lot of crazy people out there. Like, you need to, like, watch your surroundings. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
see too many things, like weird things, like, from no before moving to Delaware from New York. Once in a blue, you will have a car jump on the curb and hit a bunch of people, like, just like random stuff happening, or people getting getting punched like in the back of the head, and then, like for no reason, like all this stuff. And it's like you need to watch your surroundings, like God forbid if something happened, like can you like go home by yourself, or like go get help, or like what do you do in certain situations? Learn to cross, look both ways before crossing the street. Even if it's a one-way street, you still look
Right.
both ways. Like so like no things like that. And I like to joke around, especially with both of my kids. Like even like recently my son was like, somebody asked me to be their Valentine. I was like, who is this girl? I need her name, I need her social security number. I'm doing the background check on this person. Like
Oh, please believe it. Absolutely. I'm
so
like,
so
I'm glad I got a long time before that happens.
and even recently, like he was like hanging out with a young girl in the neighborhood. One is like a couple years younger. I'm like, you can't just be like walking around without like me telling me like where you going, even if it is in the neighborhood. And then I had to have that, kind of like race talk, like person's like white, and like you're like a young, good looking Latino brother, and it's like you need to just be careful. Like you just could be like minding your business and just talking like innocent, and like it could be a he said she said thing, and like you know it's and that stuff like does happen, just like you didn't do anything, and just like he said she said situation, just having to have that real man to man talk, with him, and start, letting him know, just be more aware of like your surroundings, who you hang out with, and even with his friends. Like everybody got the cell phone out and think it's cute and it's funny, and they getting in trouble. Like you could just be standing, just in the background, and you get caught on video, you can be caught out there and get in trouble with everybody else, even though you ain't doing anything. So it's just teaching kids just to be mindful of surroundings and who you hang out with, and that comes sometimes you have to unfortunately like learn the hard way. But if you could like teach them and start from home, then like a better opportunity they can to you know mind their surroundings, which leads to unfortunate situations. I always say anybody could be a client. So like things happen in foster care, and I started in the field in foster care, and like the stories I came across and like seeing in family court, and these like meetings with like child welfare, like every like 6 month reviews of cases, and meeting the child welfare worker with with the parents, and just myself
Y'all only has
doing
every 6 months. Michigan had every 3.
oh man.
So even more, right?
Yeah. So how tell me about your experience, in the child welfare, at least from your experience with Michigan.
Yeah, so that experience, I learned a lot. Like I think being in the different, so I used to be so I started off actually in juvenile delinquency programs. So I worked in a day treatment program and served as a family therapist. And um that was, it was interesting because of course I'm this young adult coming in, working with these kids who've had this hard life, and I can really relate to them. And so I didn't have any issues with the kids. Like, other people had all types of issues. Like the kids, they usually cling to me, would talk to me about what was going on. Honestly, the hard people were the parents,
Yeah.
to really deal with, to get them on board, to help them partner with you. Like they were hard to convince and persuade and get them to act on behalf of their children. And I'm sure it was trauma. Like sometimes you check out, right? Like
Yes.
you go through so much stuff. And I understand there were other systematic barriers that they had been dealing and living with for many, many, many years, which has led their child to make, act out and do things. And so I just learned, and I just felt so hopeless, if you will, when I was working delinquency. I was kind of excited because in undergrad, I actually wanted to do pre-law. So I was looking to go and, become a lawyer, an attorney. But I second guessed that, of course, because I was like, well, you know what? I don't know if I could represent somebody who actually guilty. I was feeling a way about that. Like, I don't know if I could get in front and be confident and really fight somebody's case. So I might be the wrong person for this. No matter how much money you give me, like, I don't know. So, but the beauty about social work was that you can get in a court and you can advocate for your client, and so I felt like I was getting the best of both worlds in that. But in this position, I kind of learned about the crossover of youth, like who are in the delinquency court, but then also really some of them should be in, foster care, because of what they've gone through. And then there are some that are dual wards, meaning they have a case in delinquency because of maybe incorrigibility or truancy, or something to that effect. Or maybe real crimes, right? Maybe they have robbed somebody, maybe they have been caught with possession or, of drugs or guns or something like that, or maybe they might be gang affiliated. So, different things like that. But then you have this component where their home life, when you talk to them, and some of my hardest kids, like when I say hard, I'm not talking about like they were hard, but meaning like the kids who came from the hard places, the ones who were gang related stuff, they actually had the hardest lifestyles at home. Like they didn't really have anything to go home to. You see what I'm saying? So it was really rough. And I'm like, well, I'm looking at both of these systems and I'm like, delinquency isn't offering like this program. It ain't it. Like this is not really giving them what they truly need. And then you look at the foster care system, when they go there, it's like they're not getting anything there either. So it's like where are the real resources? Where's the quality? You know what I mean? And so I was kind of frustrated because of course I brought a lot of my frustrations to the leadership there at the time. And it, people was just kind of like people who worked in delinquency, I felt like were very they were very status quo. They were stuck in their ways. They were like kids, they deserve this. They weren't really hopeful. It wasn't about change. And so that's something I learned in delinquency. People's attitudes, it wasn't about reforming, helping, giving a kid another chance. It was very much so get rid of you. And I realized that was an upward beast. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do anything with this. Like I'll always be at the bottom of the barrel trying to fight from the top. So I was like, okay, let me move. And I went into child welfare. And I became a licensing worker with foster parents. And I really enjoyed that, kind of like learning families who wanted, kids, and kind of learning their stories and kind of hearing like what was their motivation to bring a child into their home, or how they learned about it, right? How they were educated. And they're really kind of helping equipping them. So doing their trainings and kind of being on the front end of really setting them up so they would be prepared for that. But I found that a little challenging too, because you find that people who are interested in foster care, they're looking to foster care to adopt. So there's this unrealistic view of foster care. Like we got kids just stocked away, ready for you to pick. And 9 times out of 10, they want blue-eyed, blonde hair baby ready to come out the incubator into their home. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. Like that's not reality. And it's funny, no matter what I would tell people or try to help them understand, folks was not receiving that. Like people were still like, okay, I'm waiting for a call for this baby. And I'm like, you and a whole bunch of other folks is waiting for a baby. And it's not even guaranteed that you're going to get this baby, right? Like you're not going to keep this baby. This baby is probably not going to be up for adoption. You still have to work with their family. So
or they got an older sibling, like you want this baby, but you gotta take the sibling too, and be like, nah, we don't want this, we just want the baby. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Right. So that was always interesting. There were some great people, I'm not gonna throw shade on people. Like it was some great, I got to learn, and work with some great folks there. But that was the challenge, is helping people to really understand the reality of the status of how foster care, the processes work. Like they weren't really educated on the process and understanding really how foster care works, systematically, and where foster, kids really come from and things of that nature. So there was just a lot of educational pieces that I really tried to make up for the fact that the system really wasn't providing that.
Right.
So I enjoyed that. And then I decided to go ahead and be a direct foster care worker. So actually work with the families and the children And that honestly, that was cool too. That was a time period where I'll probably never forget, because I worked with some mothers that I remember. There was this one case where this mother was in jail, and I came to see, and I would keep coming, and she was really struggling with drugs.
Mhm.
And when they moved her to the jail, to the rehab place, I came and I got in her butt. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but you got a chance to get your kid, and I know you love your kid. And I was just speaking some life into her, and
Yeah.
she was just like, I was younger than her, but she was like, why are you talking to me like this? Like, why do you believe in me? Like, and
Yeah.
it was like, what do you mean? Like, you got a child to fight for, and you're capable. You can do this. You have to believe in yourself. Like, you can beat this habit. Just let the folks here help you do that. You're right. Like, it's not the end of the world. Um, but I did everything that I could to support her and bend my back. And, unfortunately, that particular case, you know, mom did lose her child, but the rewarding part of that, I'd have to say, this is the part that I never forget. She looked at me and she said, though I can't she realized that she couldn't give her child what that
Mm.
child deserved. And she just looked at me and she said, but you gave me hope, and I'll always appreciate that. And she was
Mm.
like, thank you, because now I can walk away knowing my child is in good hands. Because we found the child was in a foster home that was doing well and caring for the child and things of that nature. So she was good. She
Yeah.
was able to walk away peacefully, and, just, I guess, to some extent, had a little hope,
Mm.
a little peace in the situation. So that was rewarding, but it was a lot of work, because you get thrown with a
Yes.
lot of stuff. Okay.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's not easy.
absolutely.
So if
No.
anybody's listening and looking into going to child welfare, I want to encourage you to go into child welfare, because we definitely need more social workers in the field who have that technical skill and, case management and assessment and so on and so forth. I feel like that's definitely an area to explore, to at least get a little bit of experience with.
That absolutely,
It
no,
really does
absolutely.
help you. It builds a foundation for you as a social worker, no matter where you go, because you're really in the core of family systems, and you're really kind of learning all the different challenges and barriers, within a family and in community. Um, but yeah, like, so I did that for a little bit, and I decided to walk away, and I got an opportunity to go into residential. And I liked residential because I felt like it was a little bit more steady, versus the revolving door, the in and outs, or having to, like, constantly, um, I found myself always on the, going, putting in referrals, going here, doing this, because you're
Right.
you're always on go, 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 right?
Yes.
And your go, go, go is not in this small community, it's all across the state.
Mm.
So, your drives are long, your days are long, there's
Wow.
never an off time. Especially, like, I worked in private agency, so I didn't get the luxury of getting off at like 5, or
Mm.
4. So it's a little bit different, where you are the on call a lot of times, you know what I mean? Or you're on that schedule. Um, and yeah, so I went into residential settings, and that's kind of where I finished the rest of my time. I really enjoy residential. I worked for a newer, smaller program in the city of Detroit. That was just, they're doing phenomenal work now, but kind of helped start their social work department and really kind of built that up, and just worked with a lot of amazing, strong kids. And I was grateful because I got an opportunity to really be in an organization where the leaders really believed in the kids.
Mm.
No matter where they came from, how rough their background was, no matter what crap they talked, they believed in the heart of the child, and they believed in redeeming childhood for those kids while they were in their care. And they brought the human aspect of that child's suffering and challenges to a reality of helping them to face it, not alone, but with people, with support, and that really changed me. It helped me
Mm.
grow as a professional, and really kind of set a fire, in the passion that I have, that I already had with, working in foster care.
Right.
But it was really rewarding, because it's rare that you find an organization, let alone leaders,
Oh yeah,
who
absolutely.
talk that talk, walk that walk, and don't care. When I tell you, these people, these leaders that I worked with, did not care about barriers. It was
Mm.
about, how do we find a way to break the barriers down to get the kid what they need. And that was truly what it's about. We are advocates. We are fighting on behalf of these children, and whatever we got to do to help them heal, we're going to do our part, right? We're not the savior,
Right.
but we are here to help and serve them while they're with us, to give them a good experience, and they wholeheartedly believe that. And so it's rare to find someone to connect to has that same intentionality in the
Right.
work,
Right.
right?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back real quick to foster care. Like I've mentioned on past episodes, that I'm also advocate of, if you're gonna start in the field, definitely start in foster care. I've learned like so much, and that job has helped me in other jobs. Even during like the interviews when I apply for other jobs. Okay, well, I hit the 3 year mark of foster care. It's time for me to go. Like I was like beyond stressed out to a point. I was like ready like to fight fight somebody in there.
Oh,
Um, but I was like ready to go, and then like my next job was working with severely mentally ill adults, and like and in foster care I had clients with a severe mental illness, and like still helping them try to get their kids out of foster care, and like and explain that experience. I had somebody in foster care who was diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. Had a diagnosis. They're taking their medicine. They going to the medical doctors. They're still testing undetectable, and like and learning all that lingo, and talking, getting like medical records and stuff that helped me to land that job after that. So it's like
yeah.
all those things like lay like the found it taught me about job security, because it's like people like see coworkers leave left and right, like I'm quit, ain't coming
Yeah.
back, or like I mentioned earlier, no supervisors being promoted because they went back to school at the MSW, and then they hired to be program directors and supervisors. So like that, level me up. Like okay, I gotta get my MSW. So it's as much went through a lot in foster care, but definitely and I had my fun, with the kids, and I was Santa Claus my 3 years that I was there, and dressed up for Halloween parties with the kiddos, and I was lucky enough to have like a bunch of babies on my caseload, even with the
Okay.
siblings, because like
Yeah.
yeah, parents unfortunately keep having kids, and like so it's like having like babies on the caseloads, or like seeing them grow up, and like from newborns, and as they get older or still in the system, and like they recognize you like when you're setting up the family visits, and they rather play with you than play with their older siblings. So it's like and taught me like early on, like okay, like whenever the time comes to for parenthood, like okay, like I got like some a little, it's not the same thing, but it's still like a little basic. So like for like caring for a kid, like know
Mhm.
that early, and for a baby. So
You
like
learn organization, task management. You
mm,
learn how to work under pressure. With
yes, there's a lot of pressure.
right. You know how to get things done quickly, prioritize. I think what was good is, like you said, you knew your limit.
Yeah,
And I do think that I try to encourage people too who come into to come into child welfare, as social workers, is you have to you have to know your limit, right? You have to know um
be self-aware
limit
of
your
who you
time,
are. Yeah,
yeah, and what you can handle,
yeah,
because I think everybody is pretty fairly understands that child welfare is rough work, and as a direct foster care worker, everybody can't do it forever, right? It's very few that can last that long in a role. There are some that do, and that is awesome. They know themselves, they've been able to manage it and maneuver. But for a large portion of people, they burn out,
yeah,
fast. But it's like you do have to have a level of self-awareness of how long can I handle this, and when is my time to bow out. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad worker. Honestly, it means you're a great worker, because then you
yeah.
know yourself, right? That's a disservice to the children, right? So if you don't, and you're burning yourself out, like
Mm,
you're not good, you can't do good,
right.
by the kids, right? So,
Yeah,
or the families that you're serving. So yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. And that you were able to like really say, okay, look, have that level of self-awareness. I think for me it was, this little story is, so I grew up in foster care. And so for
Mm,
me to go into uh child welfare, it was actually something that I was trying to avoid. So I didn't really look at that as a career, because when you grow up in it, you're like, I'm ready for this to be over.
right.
I'm ready for my success to be so separate from being a part of a system. And so it really wasn't something that I was like aspiring to. And so to get in though, and to be a part of different positions and settings, I think it really helped me as, on a personal level, but
Mm,
also on a professional level, because then I understood the different failings, of the system, and maybe
right.
why my life or different things and decisions that were made, because then I learned, well, that's why the system makes that,
Mm,
that wasn't just a decision for me. That's just what they do, right? Like
yeah.
this is part of policy. This is a part of the system, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of observations that I was able to make and kind of, get a deeper understanding of, and really help me to see how really the system does. It harms more than it helps at times. There are those lucky few that come out and, they're good.
Mm,
Everybody is good, but it's very rare that a kid can come out of foster care unscathed of any trauma. You know what
right.
I mean? That they've incurred in the system. And I think that's the hard part. That's really the hard part of getting the system to a place where we're not a part of perpetuating a cycle, but we are a part of changing those cycles to perpetuate something different that actually helps people. And I think that's really what my podcast is about, is challenging the status quo. Like, what can we do to be a part of the change that's really needed in the system, versus perpetuating the same system cycle, the same failing, brokenness, limited, you know disappointment after
Yeah.
disappointment type of system. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
where it would serve people for real. um and so that's kind of where my podcast, it came out of this place working in. I was happy in my job, but I was frustrated with the systematic barriers for like certain things, like for instance, and it's been in the news too, where kids in Michigan, if they really had a mental health breakdown, and I had kids who really were suicidal or really struggled and they needed like hospitalization support,
Right.
kids would sit in the hospital for days, weeks, and sit there with no help, and then want to discharge them. They'll say, yep, they meet requirement for hospital. They will come a couple hours later. Nope, they don't meet anymore. They can go home. Wait, what? You just
Wow.
said that they met criteria for hospitalization,
Right.
but now something has changed, which 9 times out of 10, um, they see that the child is in foster care, has had a history of physical aggression, and
Mm,
then has decided, nope, we're not going to take you. And they sit there with no assistance. Um, and go back and become harmful to themselves and to others, right? When they could have got the assistance that they needed. So it's like, why
right.
do we keep hitting this wall? And why is it everybody else's fault? Like, this system is blaming the mental health system, and this system is blaming, child welfare. And I'm like, y'all constantly pointing fingers, but we got a child in crisis. Can y'all please
Exactly.
collaborate so
Yeah,
this kid can
exactly.
get some help? You know what I mean? This is what we are here for. Why am I hearing excuses? Let's hear actions. Let's make it
Right.
make it move. And so you already see my passion coming out. So it's like
Yeah.
that.
No, but that's real. Like, as a kid, it's almost like, there's been so much stuff in the news in the past few years with all these kids, and these kids that were like disappeared, and that was on the news. That all of a sudden, like, whatever happened to the kids, like, people stopped talking about them. Like, so it's,
When you in foster care, it's all like it's all. I mean, that's a whole nother issue too. Like,
yeah.
kids can run away,
Hmm.
and all the state has to do is file a police report. right? They got to be gone for 24 hours because the police won't take the report unless the child is gone within 24 hours. Call us back in 24 hours because they're like, they've already been labeled. There's already a stereotype on them. So once you say foster kid, oh, they ain't got no parents looking for them anyway. Wait, what? Okay. And so now they're gone. So now what are we doing? Oh, well, we put them on missing kids and we called the 1-800 number and we filed the police report. And now we just wait on what? For a pimp to go pick them up and traffic them all across the state, for them to be drugged up, for them to die. For what? Because their parents are struggling. They don't deserve you to raise hell, to go find them and go send all your recruits out to the woods and everywhere else to go find these kids. Like, I don't understand. Where's the outrage, you know? But what does society do? They sit back, everybody cool in their homes while these kids who are in the system, they're trying to, you know, they might be running or they get taken and nobody's saying anything. Right. And we're supposed to just go on about our day and do our work. And I'll be like, how? Yeah. You know, these kids a lot of times are running. I always say, I was talking to somebody earlier today and I said, you know, one thing that I know is kids, nobody asks the right questions when kids run away. People always just assume like, oh, they just running because they want to do their own thing. Kids are running from something or they're running to something. And when they're running to something, I don't even care if they're running to go do whatever they want to do, right? They're running because they need freedom, because they have felt like their life has been completely controlled and that nobody cares and loves them. So if we were doing our job, if we were doing what we needed to do, right? If we were really working with the family, I do believe that we can minimize kids running away, because then they would feel safe, right? They would feel like people really, I always say, you can really help a kid if you help their parent, or if they see that you are trying to help their parent, because then they'll realize that their parent might really be the problem because they've seen you do all that you can to help that parent. Right. So you help their family, you help their parent all you can. You can't control the decisions that the parents make, even if they choose not to get it together for their child. Right. But if that kid sees that you really do care and you're just as passionate about helping to reunify or whatever the goal is, then you're gonna make mad way with that kid. You're gonna have an in with that kid because they're gonna have some respect for you. You know what I'm saying? And we just don't ask the right questions, you know. And I'm like, kids have reasons why they run. You know, there's an emptiness, there's things that they're dealing with. They're depressed too. They're just trying to find something where they can feel or they can numb the pain. Right. Like that's always, you know, some of the reasons. And I can go on forever about that. But the podcast really came from frustrations like that, the limitations of how we react versus respond. We're not proactive at all. Nobody's raising hell when a kid comes up missing. Nobody's raising hell when they're not getting their services. Everybody's giving you excuses or telling you, oh, you didn't follow this policy. Well, when did that policy come into play? Now, why all of a sudden this is best practice? When was this best? Who said that? That's not even in policy. Why are you arguing with me about needing this paperwork when I gave it to you? Oh, because so now I got to redo it because you don't feel like going through your email. You know, it's like those kind of things. Like seriously, like is that really the purpose? You know, is that why we are here? No. So I make the podcast.
What's the name of the podcast?
Child Welfare Leaders.
How long you been podcasting?
So I started in 2019. I just, you know, it's kind of one of those things like trust the process and go on a whim and do it. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, like sometimes you just have insecurities. Like, should I really do something like that? Like, I don't even have all the, you know, you're not a journalist, you're a trained social worker, you know, so it's like, how do I do this? But I just stepped on faith and said, let me just try it. Let me get out there and let's see how the reception is. And I was really bent on, what do I call it? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just call it the Child Welfare Leaders. And it's really out of the fact that I feel like I'm a child welfare leader, so I'm leading in child welfare. And leaders doesn't mean that you have a position of leadership, because I don't believe that leaders are position, you know, are just a position. Leading is what you do. You know, it's how you live your life, how you move. So all of us are leaders in our own way. Some leaders are more so leading by following others, right? And there are then those who are leading those followers. So I just, you know, so for me, it was just more so like, let me just call it this. and everybody could be a part of it, but it was always about, let's challenge the status quo. Let's have real raw conversations about what needs to change in the system, and let's empower the people who are in it. Because when you worked in, all you're asked, you're constantly requested to do.
Yeah.
Everybody's pulling on you and needs something from you, or you got to work faster. But there's not a lot of people saying thank you, or what can I do for you today? Like, how can I
Yeah.
serve you? How can I, what words you need? You know what? You're doing such a good job. You are incredible in all that you do. Like, I appreciate your sacrifice. Nobody's doing that. So I
Right.
also wanted to create a space too for people who are in the child welfare field, have an interest in the welfare field, exploring the child welfare field, whatever they want to do. You're getting education, insight on what people are doing all across the country. We're talking about hot topics in child welfare, but you're also getting nuggets of wisdom, like what you can do to lead right where you are, where you are. Like, you don't have to have a special position or role. Where you are, you can do something to be a part of challenging the status quo in the system.
Right.
And everything is from a social work perspective, because I'm a social worker. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that's kind of where I started. And we're in the second season. I release an episode once a month. Sometimes I have bonus episodes, for special occasions, or special guests, and we've been going strong. So it's been a beautiful experience. It's been hard because I'm the one who's doing it all,
Yes.
but so it's like coming up with the content, and the guests haven't really been that hard. They
Yeah.
come, but just making sure that it sticks to the brand of the. Then you start to have to like really think about business, right? You're like making sure
Yeah.
it sticks to the brand of what your main point, your main goal was in the podcast,
Right.
and
Of
so
course.
that part has been, and then the editing and making sure it sounds good, and then launching it out, and
Yeah.
all those little behind the scenes things where it really does take a lot.
No, it really,
I
it
mean,
really does. And it's like, oh snap, I have. It could be like Wednesday, Thursday. Oh snap, I haven't like. let me like, let me do the
yeah,
flyer. It's like just
yeah.
let me set everything up, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh, a full time job by
No, for
itself. And
real. But it's the consistency. I feel like you
yeah,
thrive when you're consistent. As long as you're putting out that content and you're connecting with your listeners, everything will come. Like, you
yeah,
create
yeah,
the
yeah,
space and the time, and and I know I do it, and I'm for sure you do it. The Social Work Rants podcast. I mean,
mhm.
who doesn't love that, right? Like, get on the podcast, talk social work, and you just, you love that. You're doing something that you love, and so you
Yeah.
can't lose if you're doing that.
No, absolutely. And finally using my communications broadcasting degree from undergrad into good
Okay,
use.
well, look, you got
Good
the
use finally.
background. Look at there. So look, you was a trained journalist. My bad. I misspoke. I'm not trained as a journalist, but you go ahead. All right, you do it. What I'm talking about.
So it's like about time using the degree. It took like like almost 20 years, but
It's all good. Guess what? You was ready though. You was
yeah.
prepared. You was ready. You was ready. The time came and you was ready to go.
So I mesh my two degrees together, and here we are. But yeah, it's all about consistency, and try to find like the guests, and like go back when I first started. I had like no idea what the hell to talk about, and like kind of like COVID was kind of like a blessing. Like, oh snap, here we are in COVID. Like how we like navigating and everything, and trying to provide resources to people, and like kind of like this flight of ideas come in, like I got this idea, let's see if it works, and just and just using the podcast to come see this idea works, and it's okay, it works, so keep going. And like, so, and then just using the podcast now as like a connection, since even though the world's open, the country's open, but still like just using the podcast to connect with other social workers in the field, and see what exactly is going on that you're not going to like find on CNN or like your local news, or social media, like what exactly is going on the ground level with social work, and with policy, or what do you see with clients, like
Yeah.
what are they struggling with, like well, what's the good that's coming out in the field. So it's a
That's good.
process.
That's something we don't have.
Yeah.
We don't have enough. We have it at conferences, and if you got the money to go do that. But I love where social work is coming on podcasts, and
Mhm.
being able to talk about the work in the field and their specialties and things of that nature, or just coming and ranting, right? And,
Yeah.
and, and talking about all things social work.
Mhm.
I love that because we didn't have that. You know what I mean? We had the scholarship and the academic, where colleges were, putting on their lectures, or
Yeah.
the research that they were having, and that stuff is awesome to be able to listen to and have access to like that. But to be able to have these non-formal spaces for where social workers can come and listen to just not one field but many fields, or
Mhm.
listen to that podcast that might have a specialty where it's just for you. Like, more people are doing it, and I encourage it, because I do think it's a great opportunity for, if you are passionate about something in social work, even if it's unique, right? Because there's more and more social workers that are coming out, being business owners and entrepreneurs, and launching or using their social work degree, um, in a way that is, to start to leverage products, and different ideas, that serve people, or that is, a product for the people. So I think that's pretty awesome, because we are evolving, as a field.
No, absolutely. I've been more, and now going into like season four, like trying to like come up with different topics, related to entrepreneurship and things of that nature, or under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, of different things that social work schools don't teach us. They want to teach us go do private practice, but don't teach us like business formation and like
Yeah,
taxes, and all this stuff. And like, if you would have taught us that in grad school, how many us black and brown folks be like ahead of the game, and like really thriving even more in their businesses than like, and really like kind of take their businesses to another level, and kind of like don't gotta be like fighting the government like for student loan forgiveness, because we pay
yeah,
our own loans with the money we
that's right.
making, because we know what the heck we doing with. We're going to tax code and all this other stuff instead of working backwards.
Yeah. That's real. That's 100. I mean, I think that school does teach you some things of like how to, look for that stuff, but it would be nice. And we say it all the time, like even in high,
To have
like
a
just,
class.
regular schools, like have the classes, like
Yeah.
have people have the options to, we've been saying it for years, but people haven't put in our public school system financial literacy, right?
Yeah.
Like, have some of these classes available so that people can come out understanding how to work their money and what to do to maximize their money, as and use it as the resource that it is, right?
Right.
um and preparing people for real life, so like the book stuff is great, but I mean, really, let's prepare our people for real life. So you're
Yeah,
right, like
exactly.
we need to more have real classes that are going to help us advance as a community, as people of color, specifically, right? Me being African American, and I have Mexican background as well.
Mhm.
So it's that's so important. It's so important.
Then you're going back to undergrad, and like these classes, taking in court these core classes. I'm like, really? Wow, I'm taking this class. How does this relate to my communications degree? And I'm thinking like, am I gonna have like a conversation 5 years from now about any of this stuff? Like reading about like Aristotle and all this other stuff, where just
I mean, you
when
may like
yo
that's how
yeah,
some
you
people
may,
get
yeah,
inspired, right?
you may, but at the same time, I was like, I want to focus on, like, I'm giving you this money, I want to learn about my major, or like, or even now, nowadays, where like everything's computerized, everything's online, and much more information. Like I graduated undergrad like 2001, right before, before 9/11 happened. So like a whole like we
Yeah,
have a whole generation that a lot has changed since then.
yeah,
So the
that's
world
right.
is constantly changing, and just like have education that actually like relates to like the real world experience of what is going on now, or what can like really see like 1 or 2 years down the line, instead of like Well, you see yourself in 5 years, 5 10 years. Like, no,
Right.
man, like we, especially now, like we still, in the pandemic, which leads me to how's the pandemic been for you since we going on like year three, the start of year three.
You know what? Honestly, it's done me right. Like, to be honest with you, like I was pregnant during the pandemic. So
Mm,
having that downtime and having to be at home was a blessing for me because I was actually able to rest and not really be on my feet as much. I was teaching during, I had the opportunity to actually, which probably would have never happened. So the pandemic was a blessing because when I was in Michigan, I got the opportunity to actually have a full circle moment where I became an instructor at the University of Michigan School of Social Work.
mm.
And so, but I was able to teach virtually, which if
Oh man.
anybody knows Michigan does not do stuff online. Like we just started, like they have a program now um, where you can do part-time social work or whatnot that they've just launched. So really excited about them kind of getting ahead of that. But like that was the opportunity of a lifetime. So be able to get that opportunity to go in and teach virtual and get that experience, which I absolutely love. Like that was a blessing, and I learned a lot from that. And still I'm able to teach, at the University of Michigan,
That's dope.
virtual, so even being far away. So that has been really a blessing. And then just that flexibility, I think for me, it was just more so like having to go in all the time. That was great. And I'm definitely a goer. I'm really not an at-home worker, remote person fully, but I did like the hybrid schedule, like being able, so like now I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, is where I reside. And my job, in my role right now, it is pretty much fully remote, but there are times that I can go in, but I have the option of being able to go into my office and things of that nature, which I like that balance, right? So it's
Mm,
like I can be at home, I hear my son in the back, I'm here when my daughter gets here, I can pick her up sometimes and I'm not ripping and running and doing all this
yeah.
stuff. So that's been a blessing as a mom, you know what I
Right.
mean? Being able to
Absolutely.
have that snack together. I can get some stuff in, done during the
Mm,
day in the middle when I need to take a little break for a hot second. And then I can get back focused and doing my work. So the pressure is a little bit more off. But I miss people because of my personality. I like connecting with people. I like talking to people. And I like watching people. Like I love, not in a creepy way, but like I
yeah.
like just
Yeah.
interactions, right? I like to have, for people to be social.
Right.
So that's been the hard part, is being so limited professionally in a way. But I do love the fact that, the pandemic brought me the podcast. Podcast was born out of out of the pandemic. So I felt like
Right.
I had to be creative, and
Yeah.
really use my voice in a way where I wasn't limited, by having to go to a studio. Now we have technology where you use your phone or
Hmm.
your laptop, which I had, thankful that I have that type of resource. That's a privilege in itself, right? So I had the tools to be able to make that happen, so that, other people could get knowledge and, information and sharing conversations. Like you said, connect,
Yeah.
I've met so many amazing social workers. I mean, I
Yeah.
cannot tell you. And I'm blessed. My life is blessed because of that, of the people that I've been able to connect with that I didn't even know existed, right? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Exactly.
this is awesome. I'm not alone. Like, hey, y'all,
Yeah.
like just showing
Exactly.
love to all the social workers, because we don't get to connect just on an everyday like that. Sometimes we're in the field and I know for me, I've been in the field of social work. I mean, I've been in the field of child welfare, and it's always hasn't been social workers that I've worked
No,
alongside.
of
They've
course.
they had
Yeah.
other degrees. I still appreciate them,
Mm,
but having people and now being able to connect with people that are doing things and doing big things, at that, and they hold social work degrees, that is something I find, special, because that's something I we can share together,
yeah.
not
Exactly.
just working in the field, but really working in child welfare and advance, the field of social work, being able to advance that right through our conversations. So I
Right.
say that the pandemic was nice, and it really taught me a lot, which also inspired me to really kind of focus on building my own brand and really kind of looking more into what can I do to get, to, I guess, educate, inspire, empower, other people who are working in the field, and training them, developing them, and just finding solutions that is really going to help the purpose of changing the system.
Right. And I want to get to that, but before that, what inspired the change from the move from Michigan to Charlotte?
You know what? That's pretty easy. Honestly, one, I will tell you, there's always been a deep desire for me to come back down south because of weather. Michigan and that snow and cold. And then also Michigan is bipolar in its weather. It don't know if it want to go through all 4 seasons in one day. So
It does that there too, because
yes.
New York does that, and here Delaware does that.
I'd be like, okay, if you say it's gonna be sunny and nice, I needed to say that. I don't need to walk out the door and then all of a sudden it's frigid cold. Like it's super cold. I need a coat. I was not prepared. I had a hoodie. So I always desired to come back down south. And my husband's mother actually lives down here. So we actually just ended up moving. We always had a desire to move, but we came down here a little sooner because my husband's mother, kind of was got COVID. And so we were like, we need to go be with her. She's good now. So,
Okay,
that's a blessing and everything. But so that just kind of gave us like that extra push to kind of get down here. And we're down here and we love it. The weather is awesome. We did have a little snow, but it lasted 24 hours. I'm like, this is perfect. My daughter is looking at me like, Mom, you wish the snow away. I said, I sure did. I said, we will vacation to snow if we really need it, if we want to. Mama don't like snow. Nope, I sure don't. And I don't like cold, but I have not needed. People probably looking at me crazy because they're like, who is this girl? Like, I'll be walking around with a hoodie all day. Like, I'll be like, I don't have a big coat. I refuse. I'm rebelling from the big coats and the boots and all that. No. I don't want that. Give me some gym shoes and a hoodie. And that has been beautiful. So like they 40 degrees is nothing. It's nothing compared to Michigan. So I'm feeling good because I don't have to worry about the big clunky jackets and the boots and all of that jazz.
Yes. So, talk about your brand. We talked offline of like you wanted to use social work for your entrepreneurial inspirations. Or tell me more about that.
Yeah, so ultimately, I have been wanting for a long time to get into like speaking, and I've done a ton of speaking, but really trying to utilize public speaking in a way that I could tell my story, but then also I can actually share my knowledge, professionally. I'm somebody who has lived experience, but that's not all I am, right? So it's like, definitely want to use my education and what I have been trained to do to help others, in advancing the field of social work that way. But I really want to bring solutions to social work, to the child welfare field, in the way of, book writing, trainings, coaching, and speaking, at conferences and different events, seminars. Who knows, I might even hold my own intensives and stuff like that. I want to be able to share. I feel like I've been a very good at being a case manager that can connect with the family, connect with children, especially adolescents. Like people are kind of scared of adolescents and teenagers and don't really know how to really connect with them. And I feel like I could really help people feel more confident in doing that, and giving some real preparation to, foster parents and doing some of the stuff that I was doing for other organizations, but doing it on my own terms, you know what I mean? And doing it a little bit more, how do you say it? Doing it my way. And I want to offer high quality excellence. What I say I'm going to give you is what I'm going to give you. You know what I mean? I'm not constrained by or limited by this or that. You know what I mean? I can take on the clients that I feel like I can handle, I don't have that pressure, right? Because I'm going to be able to do what I love. So I do have a book coming out as well in March it's like an anthology book where I wrote a chapter about where social work has led me. So I'm really excited about that and hope to use that. Yes. So it's a book where a lot of people came together and just kind of writing their stories about what led them, to, through, or maybe even out of social work, or around social work. And just a beautiful opportunity that came my way. And I'm excited about that. I believe it drops at the end of March.
Okay.
And it actually has inspired me to say, you know what, I need to write more. I need to write more, a book. I heard you say you have a book coming out too. So I know writing what I think you think, or, what you want to do. I think it just is inspiring. It has a power to it. So I think I've really been gotten the inspiration to take it further, and kind of follow those dreams, now. But definitely using my social work degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what's the name of the book?
Where Social Work Leads You.
Awesome.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Now, is that doing self-published, like, or you got a publisher? Like, how's that coming out?
So it is, there is a publisher. I'm just a part. I just have a chapter. So I'm just a
Okay.
part of this group, this collective of writers and professionals. And the publisher is, going to publish the book, and we all kind of are able to use our chapters the way, we want to kind of pub it and market it and things of that nature. So I'm really
That's
excited to be a
great.
part of that. That's the first time I have published work, more academic, but this is more of an independent, more personal chapter. So I really have enjoyed the process of that and being a part of that.
That's great. Looking forward to that, and no, that is great. Like, I know for myself, like, that's I just out of the blue, just sitting on the couch and just these words popped in my head, like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh snap, I got a poem, then I got another poem, then like there's something else, then I like started
Okay.
writing, then waking up like middle of the night, and like I need to a point I started sleeping with a notepad and paper like next to me and waking up
That's
middle of the
dope.
night, started writing, and then all of a sudden like I got like several poems, and like not a poet by trade or anything like that. Just started writing, and why not release a book? And then like so, going through a writing program, like, and on the cusp of releasing it, and just
Okay.
doing the editing and like book, back cover, and like
Yeah.
all this stuff, and going through Fiverr and getting stuff done. And then it's like, all right, and making sure it looks good and things of that nature, and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I know that, like I said, that the writing process is, I thought it was going to be a lot more than what it was. I was actually inspired. I enjoyed it. Like, I really did enjoy because once I got into my flow, just like you
Yeah.
said, you found yourself just like sleeping with your notepad, like really excited about, writing and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, the release and to see how it all comes out. And yeah, I'm excited for yours too. I'm gonna have to cop that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm also going to be a compilation of a book, Latinx and Social Work Part Two. That's coming
Mm.
out towards the end of the end of the year. I think October of later this year. So yeah, a
Okay.
lot of writing coming out.
Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's what's up.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
All right. If people want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have a website yet, but that is coming. So when the book drops, it will likely drop on Amazon, but stay tuned. You can follow me on Facebook as well, Cherish Fields, Instagram, Cherish Fields _ MSW. You can Google me even, and you'll find me. um, but yeah. And then the Child Welfare Podcast, if you're interested in subscribing to that, people can surely just search Child Welfare Leaders podcast in Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can just Google Child Welfare Leaders. You'll find it, and maybe listen to an episode and subscribe. I would love to have you as a listener.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure connecting with you, talking with you. This was so dope.
Bass, I appreciate the opportunity. It was a blessing just to be on here, and just kind of get to know you as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to let me use your platform. You have something great going on here.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll talk soon.
All right. See ya.